Hello, today I'll be ranking the Obituary albums. And this is a ranking that I've probably thought about doing before, but never followed through or never got around to it until, of course, now. But I'll be focusing on the main studio albums. I won't be talking about any live or compilation or EP stuff. I'll just, again, be focusing on the main studio albums, but I'll be going from worst to best. And keep in mind, this is just my personal ranking. You don't have to agree with it, but feel free to let me know your ranking in the comment section below. So yeah, let's go ahead and start off with what I think is their worst, and I think it's easily their worst. Honestly, either this album or the next album in my ranking can honestly go back and forth as their worst, but I decided to go with this album for being at the bottom, Darkest Day. It's not terrible, it's not like god awful by any means, it's just very insanely mid, insanely average. I mean, there's just not a whole lot here that stands out. Payback is a good song, probably the best song on here if I had to choose, but yeah, this album is just insanely unremarkable and just very not as interesting as their other albums in my opinion. Again, not terrible, not painful to listen to or anything, it's just not a whole lot here stands out again, and it's easily one of my least favorites from the band. But next we have Executioner's Return. I like this album a tad more, but not by much, because this is another album that I think is really unremarkable. Again, not a whole lot standing out here. But I do like the song Evil Ways. It's probably my favorite on here. Face Your God is another song that I don't mind on here, but yeah. The replay value for me with this album just isn't very strong, which I can also say for the album that I talked about previously, Darkest Day, but yeah. Definitely one of their weakest in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to Inked in Blood. A good album, but I wouldn't say great or amazing. I mean, there's some good stuff on here, but nothing that I would rank as some of their best songs or some of their best material. But again, there's good stuff on here. I really like the title track. That's one of my favorites. Violence is a good song also. Visions in My Head. Again, this album has its share of pretty good songs on it, but again, never been one of my favorites in their discography. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to their final album in the 90s, and that is Back from the Dead. And yeah, often considered one of their weaker albums. I mean, it's often considered a step down from the albums that came before it. The four albums, of course, Slowly We Rot, Cause of Death, End of Complete, and World Demise. But yeah, this is kind of like with Inked in Blood. I would say this album is good, but not great or amazing. But I find myself liking more songs from this album than Inked in Blood, or finding myself getting more enjoyability out of this album. But some of my favorites on here: Threatening Skies, By the Light, Platonic Disease, Rewind. I mean, there's some good songs on here, but this is an album that's probably never going to rank as one of my favorites from the band. But it definitely has its share of good stuff, though. I mean, when I saw Obituary live at the Nin Factory, they did play the song By the Light, and that was pretty cool. Definitely easily one of the best songs on here. But yeah, Back from the Dead. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the album, which is their final album with Scott Burns, and that is Frozen in Time. Pretty good album, I'd say. Now, as I've mentioned sometime before and maybe a couple previous videos on my channel, this is one of those albums for me where you got a strong first half and then a weaker second half, but still decent though. But yeah, when I saw them live, they opened the set with Redneck Stomp, and that was really cool. Pretty good instrumental, not one of the best instrumentals I've ever heard, but still a solid instrumental. And then you have the bigger songs on this album, On the Floor and Insane. Definitely some of the best songs on here, especially Insane. I really like that song a lot. Blindsided, not as fast as some of the other songs on the album, but still also one of my favorites. I like the grooviness of the guitar in that song. But even the faster songs on here are really good, like Stand Alone and Back Inside. Slow Death, another favorite of mine on the album. But yeah, again, pretty good Obituary album, I'd say. And if you haven't heard it in a while, definitely give it another listen. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to their latest album, Self-Titled. Yeah, really strong album. Definitely easily the best of their modern work, of course, but I mean, really good songs on here. I mean, Sentence Day is a contender for maybe being my favorite song on here. I really like that song. Lesson in Vengeance, Turn to Stone, 10,000 Ways to Die. A lot of bangers on here, and definitely has its share of songs that I still enjoy. But yeah, overall, pretty good album from Obituary. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to the debut album, which I can understand why some people would probably maybe put this a little bit higher or maybe at their number one. Of course, it'll depend on the person, but next we got Slowly We Rot. Definitely a classic for the band, especially with the title track and Internal Bleeding. But I also really like Gates to Hell. That's easily one of my favorites on here. I really like John's vocals in that song especially. Till Death is another favorite of mine on the album. But yeah, definitely, of course, again, a classic from the band and really strong album. Pretty solid debut for the start of their career. But next we have Incomplete. Yeah, easily one of their best. Pretty good album. There's maybe a couple skippable songs on here, but besides that, still really good album from the band. I mean, I'm in Pain, probably one of my favorite Obituary songs. Same with the title track. I really like the title track. Dead Silence, Back to One. I mean, there are a lot of good songs on here, and there are some songs on here that, of course, I would rank as some of their best work. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to World Demise. So with this album, I just dig the production, and some of the songs on here are honestly some of my favorite Obituary songs, like Don't Care. And if you have the bonus track version, I don't. I just have the original copy or the original CD. But if you get the bonus track version, it comes with a song called Killing Victims Found, which is probably one of my favorite Obituary songs. Really like that song a lot. But yeah, the album starts off fairly strong with those first 4 songs, especially Don't Care, the title track, Burned In, Redefine. I really like Redefine. That's going to be one of my favorites on the album. But yeah, you could make the argument, and you can make this argument with Frozen in Time also, is that this album sometimes the songs start to blend together a little bit, or ideas from past songs are similar to ideas that are in later songs, you could say. But still, I really dig this album. It's definitely one of my personal favorites. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to what's at the top, and no surprise, I'm going with Cause of Death. But with saying that, honestly, World Demise and this album kind of go back and forth as my favorite Obituary album. So yeah, I really do think World Demise is that strong. I'm sure many people would disagree with me with putting World Demise above Incomplete and Slowly We Rot, but it's all good. Again, I personally dig World Demise, but yeah, this album, definitely many classic songs on here, like Infected, Chopped in Half, Turned Inside Out. You also have the cover of Circle of the Tyrants. But even the lesser known songs on this album are pretty good, especially Body Bag and Find the Arise. Of course, you have the title track on here, Cause of Death, another song that's one of my favorite Obituary songs. But yeah, definitely a death metal classic and easily one of their best, and I'm sure many fans would agree with me on that. But yeah, that is my ranking of the Obituary albums. Let me know your thoughts on my ranking. Are there placements that you agree or disagree with me on? Let me know, again, your ranking in the comment section below. Let me know favorite or least favorite albums or songs and all the good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and like, subscribe. Have a nice day, and take care.